Almost a year ago now, we gave our views on the 7 greatest national football teams of all time. The video did pretty well, but as is the nature of the beast, limiting such a large topic to only 7 teams meant we had to omit some genuinely world-class international outfits. The video itself is one which has kept plugging away though, and I often see comments cropping up asking for a second instalment. In what is perhaps the most delayed part 2 in YouTube history then, today we take a look at the 8th to 14th greatest national teams in the history of the game. As with part 1, talent, success at major tournaments, and the lasting legacy which the team left upon the game are the 3 main criteria by which we measure greatness here. Here are our 7 greatest national football teams of all time. Part 2. Argentina, 1941 to 1947. Since we would normally do a video from 7th to 1st, it makes sense to do this one from 14th to 8th. Kicking us off then is the great Argentina side of the 1940s. Argentina are one of a handful of genuine historical powerhouses on the international scene, and their team between 1941 and 1947 was a truly special one. It can be difficult to rank teams in the 1940s due to the absence of the World Cup, but Argentina won 4 out of the 5 Copa Americas which took place in that 7-year period, finishing as runners-up in the other. The legendary River Plate team of the same era made up much of Argentina's talent during this time, giving them players such as Angel Labruna, Adolfo Padanera, Jose Manuel Moreno, and later Alfredo Di Stefano, but they also had the likes of Norberto Mendes and René Pontini. Austria, 1931 to 1937. Hold on, I know I bore some of you with my appreciation of the historical side of the game, and more recent teams are on their way, but in the interest of accuracy, Austria's Wunderteam of the 1930s have to feature here. A team with a quick, fluid passing style, dreamt up in the coffee houses of Vienna and put into practice by Hugo Mal and Jimmy Hogan, Austria went unbeaten in 14 games between April 1931 and December 1932. The team had an excellent midfield engine in the form of Josef Smistik, and a born goalscorer in Josef Bican, but their star man was Matthias Schindler. Nicknamed the Paperman, Schindler is one of the most significant figures in the history of the game, and possibly the most talented player of the pre-war era. Austria finished 4th at the 1934 World Cup, where they were controversially knocked out by the host Italy in Mussolini's World Cup. The team was broken up 3 years later by Nazi Germany's annexation of Austria. Argentina, 1986 to 1990. I told you a more modern entry was to come, and that team is an Argentina side which reached 2 consecutive World Cup finals. Inspired, of course, by the one and only Diego Maradona, they won the first in 1986, but lost the second in 1990. Argentina had some very good players, from Oscar Rigari in defence to Jorge Barrachega in attacking midfield, but Maradona was the beating heart of this team. His displays at the 1986 World Cup were the finest peak level of performance attained by any footballer at a major international tournament, and they transformed this team from being a good side to one that we consider the 12th greatest national team of all time. England, 1946 to 1948. There were a few people in the comments last time out who felt England's team at the 1966 World Cup deserved to feature. I disagree of course, and I'm going to upset them even more here. The greatest England team ever assembled was during the immediate post-war period. Over those 2 to 3 years, England had a magnificent team from back to front. At centre half, there was the indomitable Neil Franklin, at half back, the reliability of Billy Wright, on the flanks the genius of Tom Finney and Stanley Matthews, then there was the craft and guile of Stan Mortensen, Wilf Mannion, and Rach Carter as inside forwards, topped off by the clinical Tommy Lawton through the middle. In 1946, 1947, and 1948, a period of 3 full calendar years, England played 18 games, of which they lost just 1, as well as beating the Netherlands 8-2, Portugal 10-0, and France 3-0. Again, the absence of any World Cup during this period is a real shame, and it's difficult to know for sure how England would have fared against Argentina or Uruguay for example, but they were certainly by far the best team in Europe. Brazil, 1997 to 2007. Now, this may seem like a bit of a stretch covering 10 years, and it is, but picking the dates for Brazil in the 90s and noughties is no easy task. On the one hand, they won the World Cup in 94, reached the final in 98, and won it again in 02. But then, the team had changed so dramatically between 94 and 02, it would be wrong to include that era as one team. For most of the decade between 1997 and 2007 though, Brazil had a pretty similar core of players, most notably the likes of Dida, Lucio, Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Gilberto Silva, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, and Ronaldo. That is quite a collection of talent, and we haven't even mentioned the likes of Kaká or Robinho. Brazil probably would have won the World Cup in 1998 were it not for Ronaldo's freak injury. They did win it in 2002 and should have done better in 2006. However, they did win 4 out of 5 Copa Americas and 1 Confederations Cup title in this period. The Netherlands, 1974 to 1978. Probably the omission which caused the greatest outrage in our original video, the great Netherlands team of the mid to late 1970s missed out by virtue of never having won a major tournament. It was painful to leave them out, although still justified I feel, and they did feature in our 7 greatest national teams that won nothing video, but it feels good to acknowledge them here. Former Ajax boss Rinus Michels, together with his former Ajax talisman Johan Cruyff, gave birth to a style of play known as total football. This carousel approach to the game in which, in theory, every player ought to be comfortable in every outfield position, really captured the hearts and minds of football fans across the globe. The Netherlands reached consecutive World Cup finals, losing both, and if anything, their greatest crime was overconfidence. Although Johan Cruyff was of course the star up until 1977, this Netherlands side was littered with great players such as Johan Neeskens, Piet Keizer, Willem van Hanegem, and Ruud Krol. Uruguay, 1923 to 1930. First place in this 7, so 8th overall in our ranking of the greatest ever national teams, takes us back the best part of a century. Uruguay's success on the international stage is a remarkable anomaly that shouldn't be possible given the small South American nation's resources and population. La Celeste have revelled in defying the odds though, and they made their first real mark on the world stage in 1924. Having won the 1923 Copa America, Uruguay were South America's representatives at the 1924 Olympic Games. They did their continent proud, cruising to the gold medal with 7-0 and 5-1 wins against European opposition. They repeated the feat 4 years later in the Netherlands, and it was clear that Uruguay were the best team and Jose Andrade the best player in the world. They hosted the very first World Cup in 1930, and lo and behold, they won that as well. As well as Andrade, this Uruguay team could boast the talents of Jose Nasazzi, Hector Scarone, and Hector Castro, among others. So that's it for our 7. Thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more from us if you enjoyed the video, and you can now also follow us on Twitter for more ramblings from me. Our username is simply @HITC Sevens.